The train from Lyon arrived at Gare de Lyon station in Paris just as the afternoon sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon. I stepped onto the platform with my backpack and a feeling I hadn't experienced in months. Anticipation mixed with nervous energy that had nothing to do with exploring a new city and everything to do with one person. Mariana. We'd been texting since Lyon. Short messages, nothing too revealing, but enough to keep the connection alive. She was in Barcelona, she'd said, finishing up some work. She'd be in Paris in 2 days. The thought of seeing her again made my heart race in a way that both thrilled and terrified me. Sophie's words from Lyon echoed in my mind. Don't wait too long. Life is shorter than we think. I wasn't going to wait anymore. I was going to find out what this thing with Mariana really was. I'd booked an apartment through a rental app, something in the Marais, which everyone said was the most charming neighborhood in Paris. The price was surprisingly reasonable for the location, and the photos looked perfect. A classic Parisian apartment in a 19th century building. Exposed beams, tall windows, elegant furniture. The address led me to a narrow street just off the Place de Vosges, one of the most beautiful squares in Paris. The building was exactly as pictured, honey-colored stone, wrought iron balconies, that timeless Parisian elegance that makes you feel like you've stepped into a different era. I climbed to the 3rd floor and used the key code to enter. The moment I stepped inside, something felt off. The apartment was beautiful, exactly as advertised. High ceilings with exposed wooden beams, large windows letting in golden afternoon light, hardwood floors that creaked pleasantly underfoot, furniture that looked expensive and comfortable. A small but modern kitchen, a bathroom with a clawfoot tub, a bedroom with a plush bed and crisp white linens. But it felt empty. Not just physically empty, I knew it would be that, but empty in a deeper way. Soulless. There were no photos on the walls, no books on the shelves, no magazines on the coffee table, no personal items anywhere. Even the kitchen had nothing. No spices in the cabinet, no olive oil by the stove, no coffee maker with a forgotten filter, no magnets on the refrigerator. Everything was pristine, new, untouched. It looked less like someone's home and more like a showroom. A perfectly staged set waiting for actors to bring it to life. I walked through every room, looking for something, anything that would indicate a real person had actually lived here. I found nothing. Even the closets were empty except for a few extra pillows and blankets, all looking brand new with tags still attached. I pulled out my phone and checked the listing again. Charming Parisian apartment in the heart of Le Marais. Recently renovated. Perfect for tourists looking for an authentic Paris experience. Recently renovated. That must be it. The owner had probably just finished the work and I was one of the first guests. That would explain the newness of everything. But it didn't explain the feeling I couldn't shake. The sense that something wasn't quite right about this place. I tried to push the thought away. I was being paranoid, probably because of everything that had happened in Spain and Portugal with the family legacy and Klaus and all those secrets. I was seeing mysteries where there weren't any. I unpacked my backpack, took a shower, and decided to spend the rest of the afternoon exploring the neighborhood. Paris was waiting, and I had 2 days to fill before Mariana arrived. The Marais is beautiful in that effortlessly cool way that certain neighborhoods achieve. Narrow medieval streets wind between Renaissance mansions. Tiny boutiques sell things you didn't know you needed. Cafés spill onto sidewalks. And everywhere you look there's history layered upon history. I wandered without purpose, which had become my favorite way to explore a city. I found a falafel place that had a line around the block, supposedly the best in Paris, and the falafel lived up to the hype. I walked through the Place de Vosges, the oldest planned square in Paris, with its perfect symmetry and red brick facades. I sat on a bench and watched children play while their parents read newspapers and drank coffee. I pulled out my phone and texted Mariana. I'm in Paris. The city is beautiful, but I keep thinking about how much better it would be with you here. Her response came quickly. 2 more days. I'm counting the hours. My heart did that stupid flutter thing again. I was 30 years old and felt like a teenager with his first crush. That evening, I found a small bistro near the apartment and had dinner alone. Coco vin and a glass of red wine. The food was excellent, but I barely tasted it. My mind was racing ahead to 2 days from now, to the moment when I'd see Mariana again. What would I say to her? How would we greet each other? Would there be that same electric connection I'd felt in Portugal? Or had I built it up too much in my mind during the weeks apart? I returned to the apartment around 10, planning to read for a while before bed. But as I climbed the stairs to the third floor, I noticed something that made me pause. The door to the apartment directly across from mine was slightly ajar, and I could see someone standing in the darkness, watching through the crack. I couldn't make out features, just a shape, a presence. "Bonsoir," I called out, trying to sound friendly rather than creeped out. The door closed immediately, firmly, and I heard a lock click into place. Okay, so I had a weird neighbor. That was fine. Every apartment building had at least one strange person who preferred to observe rather than engage. Nothing to worry about. But as I entered my own apartment and locked the door behind me, I couldn't shake the uncomfortable feeling of being watched. I tried to read but couldn't concentrate. The apartment felt too quiet, too sterile. In the absence of any ambient noise, no neighbors talking, no televisions playing, no signs of life anywhere. Every small sound seemed amplified. The building settling, the wind against the windows, the creak of old wood. I finally fell asleep around midnight, but my dreams were uneasy. I kept dreaming about empty rooms, about searching for something I couldn't find, about doors opening onto darkness. I was jolted awake by loud knocking on the door. Aggressive, urgent knocking. My phone said 12:17 a.m. Who the hell would be knocking at this hour? My first thought was the weird neighbor from across the hall. Maybe they wanted to complain about something, or maybe they were just strange and this was normal behavior for them. I stumbled to the door, still half asleep, and looked through the peephole. What I saw made me fully awake in an instant. Mariana stood in the hallway, soaking wet, her dark hair plastered to her face, mascara running in black streaks down her cheeks, her leather jacket dripping water onto the floor. She was holding a small rolling suitcase and looked like she'd been crying. I yanked the door open. "Mariana? What? You're not supposed to be here for 2 more days. What happened?" She looked up at me with those dark eyes, now red from crying, and her voice came out small and broken. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for just showing up like this. I know I said 2 days, I know this is crazy, but I couldn't wait anymore. I couldn't be in Barcelona pretending everything was fine when all I could think about was you. And I know this is insane. I know we barely know each other. But come inside," I interrupted, pulling her into the apartment. "You're soaked. What happened?" I grabbed towels from the bathroom and wrapped one around her shoulders while she stood dripping on the hardwood floor, looking lost and vulnerable in a way I'd never seen her before. "I quit my job," she said, her voice still shaky. 3 days ago, I was working at a gallery in Barcelona, helping to curate a new exhibition. It was good work, interesting, well-paid. But I woke up one morning and I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't pretend to care about art installations when all I could think about was you. She looked at me with tears still streaming down her face. So I quit, just like that. My boss thought I was having a breakdown. My roommate thought I was being reckless and stupid. And maybe they're right. Maybe I am being stupid. But when you texted me from Lyon, when you said you were heading to Paris, I knew I had to be here. I changed my flight, packed a bag, and I've been traveling for 12 hours. And now I'm here, standing in your apartment at midnight, and you probably think I'm completely insane. I was stunned, not by the fact that she was here, though that was surprising, but by the raw honesty, the vulnerability, the courage it must have taken to do what she'd done. "Mariana," I said softly, reaching out to cup her face gently, "I don't think you're insane. I think you're the bravest person I've ever met." Fresh tears spilled over. "Really? Really? Come on. Let's get you out of these wet clothes and make you some tea." I gave her one of my t-shirts and sweatpants to change into while I made tea in the kitchen. When she emerged from the bathroom, looking smaller and younger in my oversized clothes, with her makeup washed off and her hair wrapped in a towel, I felt something shift in my chest. This was real. This connection, this feeling, this pull between us, it was real. We sat on the sofa with mugs of tea, and Mariana told me everything. About her year traveling through Europe after finishing her art history degree in Brazil. about how she'd taken temporary jobs in museums and galleries to fund her travels, about how she'd been in Portugal for 3 months, working with a cultural preservation organization, when she'd seen me at that cafe in Porto. "I knew immediately there was something different about you," she said, curling her legs underneath her. "The way you carried yourself, like you were running from something but also searching for something. I'm the same way. That's why I've been traveling. I finished university and everyone expected me to go home to Sao Paulo, get a proper job, settle down. But I couldn't. I felt like there was something more out there, something I needed to find before I could go back." "And have you found it?" I asked. She looked at me for a long moment. "I think maybe I'm starting to." We talked until 3 in the morning. I told her about Sophie and Lion, about helping her find Laurent, about the realization that I'd been thinking about Mariana the whole time. "I almost kissed Sophie," I admitted. "There was this moment on a bridge where it could have happened. But I pulled back because it didn't feel right. Because even though Sophie is amazing, she wasn't you." Mariana's eyes softened. "I'm glad you told me that. I want us to be honest with each other. About everything. Even when it's scary? Especially when it's scary." Eventually, exhaustion caught up with both of us. I insisted Mariana take the bed while I took the sofa, and though she protested, she was too tired to argue much. I gave her an extra blanket and pillow, and she squeezed my hand before disappearing into the bedroom. "Thank you for not thinking I'm crazy," she said from the doorway. "Thank you for being brave enough to come here," I replied. I lay on the sofa in the dark, listening to the sounds of her settling into the bedroom, and I felt something I hadn't felt since leaving Chicago. Hope. Real, genuine hope that maybe I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. Mariana had somehow found a cafe and brought back croissants and pain au chocolate. We ate breakfast by the window, watching Paris wake up below us. "So," she said, licking chocolate from her fingers, "show me your Paris." We spent the day exploring the city together, and it was like seeing Paris for the first time through new eyes. We climbed to the top of the Eiffel Tower at sunrise and watched the city emerge from the morning mist. All golden light and beautiful architecture stretching to the horizon. Mariana knew Paris better than I did. She'd been here twice before, and she took me to places tourists never find. A tiny bookstore in the Latin Quarter where the owner's cat slept on piles of first editions. A bakery in the 11th arrondissement that made the best tarte tatin in the city. A hidden garden behind an unmarked door in the Marais where you could sit and feel like you'd stepped out of time. We walked through Montmartre, climbed the steps to Sacré-Cœur, watched street artists paint portraits and musicians play accordion. We held hands as we walked, and it felt natural, right? Like we'd been doing this for years rather than hours. At the Musée d'Orsay, Mariana stood in front of Monet's Impression, Soleil Levant, and explained why that painting had changed everything, how it had launched an entire movement that revolutionized art. I wasn't really listening to the words. I was watching her face, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about something she loved, the animated gestures of her hands, the passion in her voice. I was falling for her, hard. That evening, we were walking back to the apartment through the Marais when Mariana suddenly stopped. "Peter, have you noticed anything strange about your apartment?" "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Something about it feels off. It's beautiful, but it's too perfect, too clean, like nobody's ever actually lived there." "I thought the same thing when I arrived," I admitted. "Everything is brand new. No personal items anywhere. The listing said it was recently renovated." "Maybe," Mariana said, but she didn't sound convinced. "It's probably nothing. Just feels weird." We returned to find the door across the hall slightly ajar again, and once again, I caught the sense of someone watching us from the darkness inside. "That's the neighbor," I told Mariana quietly as we entered our apartment. "They were doing the same thing last night. Haven't seen them, just their door cracked open. Watching." Mariana shivered. "That's creepy. Very." That night, as we were making dinner together in the small kitchen, pasta with tomatoes and basil from a market we'd found, we heard it. Whispers in the hallway. Low, urgent voices speaking French too quickly for me to understand. Mariana froze, her eyes widening. She understood French better than I did. "What are they saying?" I asked. "They're talking about this apartment," she whispered. "About how someone should tell us. About how it's not right to rent it to people who don't know." Before I could respond, the voices faded, footsteps retreating down the stairs. "Don't know what?" I said. Mariana looked genuinely spooked. "I don't know, but I think we should find out." The next morning, I decided to do some investigating. I started with the neighbor across the hall. I knocked firmly on their door and waited. After a long silence, the door opened just a crack, revealing an elderly man with white hair and worried eyes. He looked to be in his 70s, dressed in a worn cardigan and slippers. "Oui," he said cautiously. "Bonjour, monsieur. I'm staying across the hall. I'm Peter." I offered my most friendly smile. He studied me for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. The door opened wider. "Jean-Claude," he said with a heavy accent. "You are American?" "Yes, and my friend is Brazilian. We're just here for a few days." His expression grew troubled. "You should not stay in that apartment." "Why not?" Jean-Claude looked over my shoulder toward my door, then back at me. "You do not know?" "Know what?" He sighed heavily. "Come, I will tell you, but not in the hallway." I gestured for Mariana to join us, and we followed Jean-Claude into his apartment. Unlike ours, his place felt lived in. Photos on every surface, books stuffed into shelves, the comfortable clutter of someone who'd been in the same place for decades. He made us coffee and we sat at his small kitchen table. Jean-Claude wrapped his hands around his mug and began to speak. "I have lived in this building for 43 years, he said. "I know every apartment, every family that has come and gone. That apartment where you stay, number 7, it has a dark history." Mariana and I exchanged glances. 5 years ago, Jean-Claude continued, a couple lived there, Pierre and Veronique. They seemed happy at first, but Pierre was jealous, possessive. He did not want Veronique to work, to have friends, to leave the apartment without him. She felt trapped. I had a sinking feeling about where this was going. One night, there was a terrible fight. We heard shouting, things breaking. I called the police, but before they arrived, he paused, his eyes distant with the memory. Pierre killed Veronique, stabbed her in the bedroom. Then he took the same knife and killed himself in the living room. Mariana's hand found mine under the table, squeezing tight. The police came, the investigation happened, but eventually the apartment passed to Pierre's family. They could not bear to keep it. They sold it to a man who renovates properties and rents them to tourists. He removed everything, the old furniture, the wallpaper, everything that belonged to Pierre and Veronique. He painted all the walls white, bought new furniture, new appliances, everything. He erased all evidence of what happened. And now he rents it without telling people? I asked, feeling anger rise in my chest. Jean-Claude nodded sadly. He says it was 5 years ago that it is legal to rent. And technically it is, but it is not right. People should know. That is why I watch. To warn people when I can. Is that why you left us the envelope? Mariana asked. Jean-Claude looked surprised. What envelope? Yesterday, someone slid an envelope under our door. It had an old photo of the building. That was not me, Jean-Claude said, looking troubled. But others in the building know the story. Perhaps someone else tried to warn you. We sat in silence for a moment, processing this information. I have nightmares still, Jean-Claude said quietly. The sounds from that night. Veronique's screams. I should have done something sooner. Broken down the door. Something. It wasn't your fault, I said gently. You called the police. You did what you could. He shook his head. I should have done more. We thanked Jean-Claude for telling us the truth and returned to our apartment. Inside, everything looked different now. The pristine white walls weren't fresh and modern. They were a cover-up. The new furniture wasn't stylish. It was a replacement for everything that had been soaked in blood. The emptiness wasn't minimalist. It was an erasure. Mariana shuddered. I don't want to stay here, Peter. Neither do I. Let's pack up and leave. Within an hour, we had our bags ready. I left a scathing review on the rental app, detailing what Jean-Claude had told us and accusing the owner of deliberately concealing the apartment's tragic history from guests. As we left, Jean-Claude was waiting in the hallway. "I am glad you are leaving," he said. "You seem like good people. You deserve better than to sleep where such darkness occurred." "Thank you for telling us the truth," Mariana said, giving him a quick hug. We took the metro to Gare Montparnasse and bought tickets for the next train heading west. We didn't care where it went, we just needed to leave Paris. The train that departing in 30 minutes was headed to Pont-Orson, the closest station to Mont Saint-Michel in Normandy. Perfect. "Have you ever been to Mont Saint-Michel?" I asked Mariana as we boarded. "No, but I've always wanted to. That medieval abbey on the island, right? That's the one. Supposed to be incredible." As the train pulled out of Paris, leaving the city behind, Mariana leaned her head against my shoulder. "Well, that was an adventure," she said with a laugh that was slightly shaky. "Definitely not the romantic Paris experience I'd planned," I admitted. "I don't know," she said, lifting her head to look at me. "We faced something disturbing together and came out the other side. That's kind of romantic in its own way. Morbid, but romantic." I laughed. "That's one way to look at it." "Peter," she said more seriously, "thank you for not freaking out when I showed up crying at midnight. Thank you for these past few days. Thank you for being exactly who I hoped you'd be. Thank you for being brave enough to quit your job and fly to Paris on a feeling," I replied. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever done for me. Even though we ended up in a murder apartment? Even though we ended up in a murder apartment." She smiled and settled back against my shoulder. Through the train window, the French countryside rolled past. Fields of sunflowers, small villages with church spires, forests and rivers, and the beautiful chaos of rural France. I thought about the apartment we'd just left, about Jean-Claude still living with his nightmares, about the owner who'd erased a tragedy to make a profit. I thought about how places can hold darkness, how you can paint over it and furnish around it but never truly erase it. But I also thought about how Mariana and I had faced that darkness together, how we'd made the decision to leave together, how we were now on a train to Normandy together. Maybe that was what mattered. Not the darkness we encountered, but how we responded to it. Not the tragedy of others, but the connection we were building. "So we're really doing this?" Mariana asked. "Traveling together? No plan, just seeing where things take us." "That's what I'm hoping," I said. "If you're willing." I quit my job and flew across countries to be with you, Peter. I think we're past the point of playing it safe. I laughed. "Fair point. Although," she added with a mischievous smile, "you should probably know I snore sometimes, and I'm terrible with directions, and I drink way too much coffee, and I cry at sad movies. And, Mariana, yes, I don't care about any of that." She beamed at me, and in that moment, on that train leaving Paris behind and heading toward Mont Saint-Michel and whatever adventures waited there, I felt something settle in my chest. This was right. We were right. Whatever complications lay ahead, whatever challenges we'd face them together. The apartment in Paris had no history, no soul, no life. But now it had one memory, the memory of two people finding each other, choosing each other, and deciding to write their own story regardless of the darkness around them. That was worth something. That was worth everything. As the train carried us toward Normandy, toward the medieval abbey rising from the sea, toward whatever came next, I pulled out my notebook and wrote, "Paris taught me that you can't erase tragedy by painting over it. The darkness remains, hidden beneath fresh surfaces. But Paris also taught me that when you find someone willing to face that darkness with you, when you find someone who chooses you despite the complications and fears and unknowns, you hold on to them." Mariana showed up at my door at midnight, crying, having quit everything to be with me. That's the kind of courage I want in my life. That's the kind of love I want to build. One based on honesty and bravery and the willingness to take risks. The apartment had no history. Now it has ours. And we're just getting started.